Okay, so today is Thursday, November. Today is Thursday, December 14th, 2023. This is the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. The stock price closed again above $5 a share. That's again a very, very positive sort of thing. But as we approach the Bitcoin halving, I got to tell you something. There are a lot of people in the Bitcoin community that suspect that Stronghold Digital Mining is doomed. Once the halving takes place, people suspect we're going to go bankrupt. So they say basically, hey, you guys, meaning Stronghold Digital Mining, already has like too much debt, not enough revenue, high costs, negative cash flow, and carbon credit income that may not really materialize in earnest until 2025 or 2026. Now, I posted about this on X. I'm going to link to that in the description to this video, so check that out. But let me address that, and I'll refer to a couple notes I have. Basically, I'm of the belief that as it relates to too much debt, Stronghold Digital Mining restructured practically every portion of its debt starting in the middle of last year through this year, okay? The biggest piece of debt that is still out there has to do with the Whitehawk credit agreement. Now, that was restructured in such a way that it's truly a win-win situation. Whitehawk is arguably going to actually make more money, right, behaving as a true partner to the company than by forcing a bankruptcy. And I think that's already starting to prove itself, right? Like this year alone, I think I calculated Stronghold Digital Mining has paid just on that major Whitehawk piece of debt, probably upwards of $8 million in interest. Okay, we haven't even started repaying the principal yet. But, let that sink in for a second. That's a significant amount of interest to be paying on debt, which Whitehawk is going to get paid back in full, right? So, again, it's a win for Whitehawk. They're going to collect more money, right, at the end of the day. But it's also a win for Stronghold Digital Mining because it actually gave us that amendment to the credit agreement really gave Stronghold a lot more room to maneuver as, the crypto winter was in its full strength, so to speak, right? And things were not really looking too healthy on the hash price front. And at the time, things were not really looking too good on the grid, like electricity sales front. So as it relates to too much debt, I do think that we have a manageable amount of debt, and that the restructuring that took place specific to the Whitehawk credit agreement, I think that ultimately was a win-win situation. Okay, not enough revenue. Well, bear in mind, right, that as part of Stronghold's significant debt restructuring activities that began in around August of 2022, Stronghold actually returned the vast majority of its Bitcoin mining machines in exchange for having about $70 million of debt completely eliminated. So not only was that a mission critical piece of this debt puzzle, but it also had the effect of eviscerating the company's Bitcoin mining, hash rate capacity, right? Like our ability to generate useful revenue from Bitcoin mining pretty much evaporated because we gave back, right? The company gave back the vast majority of its Bitcoin mining machines. So the company has spent the vast majority of 2023, right, the year we're in right now, slowly but surely rebuilding its Bitcoin mining infrastructure. Company's up to about 4 exahash, right, of Bitcoin mining capacity. The company, right, Stronghold, recently entered into a managed services agreement with Frontier Mining. And the goal, for doing that, right, the reason why they did that was to really optimize all of this data center Bitcoin mining infrastructure. Let's make sure that, like our uptime is really high and that we're taking advantage of these really good hash prices that exist right now. Like I just looked a moment ago, hash prices were at 8 cents. That is really, really decent. So No complaints there. So yeah, not enough revenue, but it's because we eliminated about $70 million worth of debt. We rebuilt the fleet. I suspect Q4 2023, the quarter we're in right now. Let's take a look at what our revenue numbers look like. I think they're going to be materially better. Remember, the company Stronghold even announced that November saw its highest revenue for the entire year. So that's like really, really good news. So I think the revenue side of this is starting to come back in a meaningful way. High costs. Okay, so in 2022, Stronghold Digital Mining had core fuel operations and maintenance, general administrative, and interest. I like including that as well. Interest expense totaling roughly $144 million. That's a lot of money, okay? And these are expenses that are like cash out of the bank. Okay, it's not like depreciation or, sort of like non-cash accounting things going on. This is money that the company has had to pay out. In 2023, meaning the year that we're in right now, up through Q3 2023, so September 30th, 2023, those same core expenses, fuel, O&M, G&A, interest, has totaled about $79 million. So that is already so far, right, a very big improvement over last year. And I'm 100% convinced that Stronghold Digital Mining is aware of the need to push costs down even further in 2024. Okay, negative cash flow. All right, what's going on there? So bear in mind, in 2022, last year, Stronghold Digital Mining actually ended the year cash flow positive. Okay, largely from my perspective due to Winter Storm Elliott and the fact that we were able to just shut down the data centers and send all the electricity that was being produced at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek directly to the grid. We have that optionality to sell the electricity we generate to the grid. And so that enabled Stronghold Digital Mining, despite a brutal sort of like crypto winter, getting started. We as a company, right, the company itself managed to finish 2022 cash flow positive. Bear in mind, as I shared a moment ago, most of the Bitcoin mining machines were returned, right? So heading into 2023, in terms of a cash flow profile, it's kind of interesting. Q1 saw negative cash flow, but it was like almost like break even. It was like negative 3.9 million, but then it got a bit better. In Q2 2023, negative 2.6 million. So, slight improvement. Q3 2023, 2.4 million. Do you see the trajectory, right? We're pretty much almost at break even, despite the fact that for, the vast majority of Q1, Q2, and even parts of Q3, we just didn't really have a fully deployed fleet of Bitcoin mining machines to help with, profitable revenue generation. So I'm impressed by the fact that the company managed to pretty much tread water instead of having like a blowout, oh man, we're down like $20 million, in one quarter or anything like that. So I know, right, I unequivocally know that Stronghold Digital Mining is keenly aware of the need and importance to be cash flow positive as a business. Okay, that's like mission critical. Okay. Major carbon capture credit income not really materializing until 2025 or 2026. Bear in mind, okay, there's something referred to as offtake agreements, okay? And I don't want to get into the weeds of what this represents, but essentially, and I'm going to quote this now, okay? Offtake agreements exist wherein carbon, meaning CO2, removal certificates can be contracted to a buyer at a pre-agreed price. Think about that for a moment. There are systems in place whereby, hey, we have a plan, right, to remove carbon from the atmosphere. Once we have that in place, we're in a registry, we have a system that is, right, measurable, it's reportable, right? And that, right, it can be essentially monitored and proven to be something that's actually happening. We can then potentially, right, approach a buyer, right, and say, hey, let's go into an offtake agreement, right? So that buyer will say, okay, Stronghold Digital Mining, we're open-minded to paying, say, I don't know, like $130, right, per ton of CO2. that you're going to be removing. And hey, this is like the future date at which point we will start making these payments. That's reduced to a contract. That contract then can be, essentially used to obtain debt and or equity financing if needed. I want to emphasize if needed. Okay. And that's really, really, really important. Because remember, the Bitcoin halving is going to take place sometime in the sort of like early middle part of 2024. To the extent and by the way, Stronghold Digital Mining is going to see some carbon credit income more than likely, right, in 2024 itself. It's not like nothing's going to come in. There's going to be some degree of, some amount of carbon credit sales in 2024. I mean, I believe that. That's my opinion, and it's, I think, what the company has been suggesting. And if you look at the facts, it seems fairly likely. But okay, fair enough. Hey, the majority of the income is not going to maybe come until 2025. So be it. So, there might be that period of time, maybe 6 to 8 months, where to the extent after the halving, the company needs to shore up some additional financing. I believe that if some of these offtake agreements are in place, that's going to set the stage for those agreements, wherein the company can potentially, if needed, work to get whatever funding is necessary to tide them over, if that's even necessary. Remember, the price of Bitcoin keeps going up, all right? To the extent it continues going up, the network hash rate more or less stays where it's been at. I mean, hash prices have been phenomenal. Okay, so Stronghold Digital Mining is not going to just be, hopefully, right, like, losing money nonstop from here into the halving. If anything, from what I'm seeing, the data I'm looking at suggests that the company is doing very well on a day-to-day basis. But again, you got to do well every single day, right? It's not just one day. So as it relates to carbon credit, the major portions of carbon credit income not materializing until 2025 or 2026, I don't necessarily see that as being a problem, provided that we potentially, have some offtake agreements in place or something similar to that, so that if needed, we can get the kind of financing we need to sort of survive, right? If it's even needed. Okay, in summary, I believe that Stronghold Digital Mining does in fact have a viable, reasonable, I think actionable plan to survive the Bitcoin halving. Now, I think it's also important, right, that this not be the type of victory that results in, yes, the company survives, but, shareholders suffer a lethal dose of dilution, right, or something like that, because that, that's where it starts to get kind of tricky. I really don't think Stronghold Digital Mining is going to go bankrupt. That's my opinion. I don't think it is. I really don't. Can we structure any potential financing in such a way that to the extent there is going to be any dilution, it's really, really crystal clear that it's going to be accretive, right? That we're actually going to be doing this not, to stave off, a problem, but because we want to add fuel to something that's growing and that has the potential to generate millions upon millions of dollars. Not just in the short term, but for the foreseeable future. Remember, grid prices are going to be what they're going to be. We've got 165 megawatts, right, of electricity that we generate at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek that could be sold to the grid. That is not being cut in half. Once we have these carboliths set up, both at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek, that's going to be an asset that's going to be there for a very long time, right? It's not like that's going to be chopped in half due to an algorithm, right? That's going to be changing or anything like that. So, but that is a concern, right? I think for everyone, hey, we want to make sure that, the company stays in business, but we don't necessarily want to suffer, fatal doses, right? Lethal doses of dilution. And I know that's on a lot of people's minds, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. Okay, with all of that said, I do believe that there is reason to be genuinely optimistic about what's happening right now with regard to hash prices, with regard to the price of Bitcoin, with regard to the price of shares of Stronghold Digital Mining. I think we're starting to go in the right direction. I think from a macroeconomic perspective, I really think we're setting up for something really, really big, because remember, the U.S. Federal Reserve, They're essentially signaling no more, no more interest rate hikes. That's what they seem to be suggesting. And furthermore, potentially interest rate cuts beginning next year. The market, right, generally has responded very, very favorably to that. So with all of that said, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.